Belgium in the 19th century was a nation grappling with its newfound independence, secured in 1830. The Industrial Revolution was sweeping across Europe, and Belgium, with its abundance of coal and iron, found itself at the forefront of this transformation. Factories sprouted up, drawing people from rural areas to urban centers in search of work. This rapid industrialization brought prosperity for some, but also led to widespread poverty and social upheaval. Cities swelled with an influx of workers, often living in cramped and unsanitary conditions. The gap between the rich and the poor widened, creating social tensions that the newly formed Belgian government struggled to address. The newly established Belgian government faced a daunting task: forging a national identity while tackling pressing social issues that threatened the fabric of society. The plight of the poor, particularly those deemed undesirable, beggars, orphans, and the mentally ill, became a matter of national concern. Philanthropy and charity, often driven by religious institutions, were seen as insufficient to address the scale of the problem. In this context, the idea of the colonies of benevolence emerged as a potential solution. These colonies, envisioned as self-sufficient agricultural communities, were presented as a humane and innovative solution to poverty and vagrancy, aiming to rehabilitate the marginalized. The first colony of benevolence was founded in 1822 in Wortel, a small village in Belgium. This initiative was part of a broader social experiment aimed at addressing poverty and social issues of the time. It was soon followed by the establishment of other colonies in various locations across Belgium, each with the same mission and goals. The concept was simple yet ambitious: remove the so-called undesirables from society and provide them with the means to become productive citizens through agricultural labor. This was seen as a way to reform and rehabilitate those who were marginalized. The government, often in collaboration with private charities and philanthropic organizations, acquired large tracts of land. These lands were typically infertile and challenging to cultivate, making the task even more daunting for the inhabitants. These colonies were meticulously designed to be self-sufficient. Inhabitants were expected to grow their own food, make their own clothes, and generate income through the sale of surplus produce or handmade goods. This self-sufficiency was seen as a key to their rehabilitation. However, the underlying philosophy of the colonies was rooted in a paternalistic view of poverty. The authorities often blamed the poor for their circumstances, believing that their character could be reformed through strict discipline and hard work. This approach was controversial and sparked much debate about the ethics and effectiveness of such measures. Life in the colonies of benevolence was rigidly structured and governed by strict rules and regulations. Inhabitants, often referred to as colonists, were segregated by age, gender, and the perceived severity of their situation. Their days were filled with arduous labor, primarily agricultural tasks like tilling the land, planting and harvesting crops, and tending to livestock. Beyond agriculture, colonists were also engaged in workshops, learning trades like carpentry, weaving, or shoemaking. This work, while touted as a means of rehabilitation, often resembled forced labor, with colonists receiving little to no compensation for their efforts. Section 5. The Ideal and the Reality. The gap between vision and implementation. While the colonies of benevolence were envisioned as utopian communities promoting self-sufficiency and moral reform, the reality often fell short of these lofty ideals. The grand visions of prosperity and harmony were met with the harsh truth of infertile lands, making it challenging to achieve true self-sufficiency. Colonists faced numerous obstacles, including the rigid structure and strict discipline, which, while intended to instill discipline, often bred resentment and despair among colonists. Moreover, the social dynamics within the colonies were strained by the separation of families and the limited contact with the outside world, creating a sense of isolation and confinement. The colonies, rather than offering a path to reintegration into society, often became places of permanent segregation. The dream of a better life was overshadowed by the stark reality of daily struggles and unfulfilled promises. Section 6. Labor and livelihood. The economic engine of the colonies. The economic viability of the colonies of benevolence was a constant challenge. The intention was for the colonies to be self-sufficient, generating income through agricultural surplus and the sale of goods produced in workshops. However, the poor quality of land, coupled with the lack of skills and motivation among some colonists, made it difficult to achieve true economic sustainability. The colonies often relied on government subsidies and charitable donations to stay afloat, undermining the goal of self-sufficiency. Moreover, the labor of the colonists, while presented as a rehabilitative measure, was essentially unpaid, raising ethical questions about exploitation. Section 7. Children of the colonies, education and upbringing. Children formed a significant portion of the population within the colonies of benevolence. Orphaned, abandoned, or removed from families deemed unfit, these children were subjected to a regimented upbringing intended to mold them into productive citizens. Education, primarily focused on practical skills and religious instruction, was compulsory. Boys were trained in agriculture or trades, while girls learned domestic skills like sewing and cooking. The emphasis on discipline and obedience often came at the expense of nurturing and emotional support, leaving lasting impacts on the lives of these children. Section 8. Shifting perspectives, criticism and reform. Over time, the colonies of benevolence faced mounting criticism. Social reformers and advocates for the poor began to question the effectiveness and ethical implications of these institutions. The harsh living conditions, the lack of freedom and autonomy, and the exploitation of labor drew condemnation. The colonies, initially lauded as innovative solutions to poverty, were increasingly viewed as inhumane and ineffective. This shift in perspective led to calls for reform, advocating for more humane treatment of the poor and a greater focus on reintegration into society. Section 9. The colonies today, legacy and remembrance. The colonies of benevolence in Belgium gradually faded from existence in the early 20th century, unable to withstand the tide of social change and criticism. However, their legacy continues to shape Belgium's social landscape. Some former colony sites have been transformed into museums or memorials, serving as stark reminders of this controversial chapter in Belgian history. These sites prompt reflection on the complex relationship between poverty, social welfare, and human dignity. The lessons learned from the colonies continue to inform contemporary debates on social inclusion, poverty alleviation, and the rights of marginalized groups. Section 10. Conclusion. Lessons learned and the enduring impact. The colonies of benevolence stand as a testament to both the good intentions and the potential pitfalls of social engineering. These colonies, established in the early 19th century, were designed to provide a structured environment for the poor and vagrant, aiming to reform and rehabilitate them through hard work and discipline. While driven by a genuine desire to address poverty and vagrancy, the colonies ultimately failed to achieve their lofty goals. The harsh realities of life within these colonies often contradicted their noble intentions, revealing the complexities and challenges of implementing such grand social experiments. The rigid structure, the emphasis on forced labor, and the isolation from mainstream society proved detrimental to the well-being and rehabilitation of the colonists. Many found the conditions oppressive and dehumanizing, leading to a lack of genuine improvement in their circumstances. The legacy of the colonies serves as a cautionary tale, reminding us of the importance of human dignity, individual autonomy, and the need for social policies that empower rather than confine. It highlights the dangers of imposing rigid structures without considering the individual needs and rights of those affected. As we grapple with contemporary social challenges, it is essential to draw upon the lessons of the past, ensuring that our solutions are rooted in compassion, respect, and a deep understanding of the complexities of human experience. By learning from the successes and failures of the colonies of benevolence, we can strive to create more humane and effective social policies that truly uplift and support those in need.